Welcome back to the Green Yard. It is the beginning of January of 2023. Happy New Year to all of you. We got a lot of plans for this 2023 year. Some things are already in motion, which is great for the Green Yard, and I'm very excited to bring you along with me as we create this beautiful, tropical, edible green yard here in the Phoenix Desert. So you may recognize this from one of our more popular videos. I'm over here in our kind of stone fruit orchard section. It's literally just this area of the green yard along our side yard where I have 3 different varieties of apples, a peach, a plum, and an Asian pear tree. So this is our Pink Lady apple tree. It did amazing last year. I did a growing a Pink Lady apple tree video, but I did not do a harvesting video. I actually filmed one, it just didn't work out to release it. So we'll definitely do that in the summer, right around July, end of June, July, when we actually harvest those apples. We'll do that again this year. But we're in the middle of winter, and I really don't like the winter for a couple of reasons. One of which, everything looks terrible. Honestly, the whole green yard looks awful right now. We had a really hard freeze about 3 weeks ago, so all of our bananas are not dead, but the leaves are all brown. You can see actually all of our stone fruit trees this year lost their leaves. Even this one with this few bit of leaves on here, it lost way more leaves than last year. A huge amount. Last year was basically all leaves still at this point in time. So we have warmed up a little bit, but it has been very overcast, very rainy. We've gotten over an inch of rain in the last 2 weeks, so definitely some interesting weather. And unfortunately, the green yard doesn't look very green or very alive right now, and that's one of those struggles with filming and producing content this time of year. We do have some very important things to do though this time of year, one of which is our pruning, our trimming of those stone fruit trees for the spring to help them thrive, survive, and produce lots of fruit. So last year on our Pink Lady apple tree, I probably got between 100 and 200 fruits off of it. It did amazing. Those apples were delicious. I didn't get any off of my this is my I'm blanking on the name. This is my Granny Smith apple tree, and I didn't get any apples last year, but it actually looks like I missed one, and that one did produce on here. Very small, I just didn't find it. So apparently we did have an apple last year. I just missed that apple. So we are going to go through and trim each of these trees and do kind of a video on each individual tree as well. So for this video, we're focusing on our Pink Lady apple tree. Now this tree is huge. This is a huge tree. I've had it for almost 4 years. It was in our old yard. We took it out of the ground, put it in here. Beautiful, beautiful tree, and like I said before, it produces a lot of fruit. Now, it's kind of gone everywhere this year, so I have a lot of trimming to do this year. So I'm going to take my shears, my loppers, okay, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to trim out some of this tree here. Here we go. first thing I want to do, very important, I haven't done this in the past, but I'm realizing how important it is. I don't want to spread any sort of disease or anything from my other plants to this pink lady apple tree to any of my other trees. If this were to be diseased, just by trimming it, I could then spread that disease to any of my other stone fruit, even any of my other trees if that disease affects those trees. So I'm going to take my cotton pad and my rubbing alcohol. This is just 91% rubbing alcohol. You get it at the drugstore. I'm going to take that cotton pad and I'm just going to go ahead and take my loppers, really clean off this edge, this leading edge, disinfect it with this rubbing alcohol. Like I said, I've never done this before. I always was like, whatever, but I'm realizing that's probably a good idea, that I should clean it every time, especially now that trees are getting older. They're worth more to me. They're producing that fruit. I really care about them. I don't want anything to happen to my fruit trees. So I went ahead and disinfected that. We'll just set that here. So this tree is kind of interesting because it does have a lead off the bottom. It is above the graft, so this tree is grafted, and that extra branch is off the graft or above the graft, so it is a pink lady tree. I made sure that when I let it grow out. So it does have kind of two branches coming up here, and I'm okay with that. That's what it is. The problem though is that this has a lot of interior growth. You want to make sure that you keep the interior clean and clear. It lets for a lot of airflow to travel through the tree, helps sunlight come in, helps with any sort of pests as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear out a bunch of these branches that are in the inside or growing in towards the interior. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to cut this guy right here first. This is very much growing on the inside. And I want to make sure that I'm cutting it right next to the trunk. I don't want to have all these big separations or anything like that. So this guy down here doesn't have any sort of fruit buds or anything. It does have leaf buds on here, and I'll do some close-ups of this branch. It doesn't get any fruit until it actually gets up to this point. These are kind of our fruit leads. Anything that sticks out, that's what's going to flower and eventually produce fruit. One of the main reasons to trim as well is to thin out the tree, because if I have all these branches everywhere, for one, the fruit's not going to be very big, and if it is big, it's going to overcrowd, it's going to not grow to what I want it to be, and ultimately I'm not going to get the harvest that I want. So I'm going to make a little pile of all my cuttings over here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut more of the interior of the tree here. So one of the other things for me is that this tree, I do have retaining walls here, so I want to also cut the tree away from the wall as well, because I don't want it to get too close to the wall. It can rub against it, it can cause some issues in that sense. It also gets hot. As it gets too hot, that fruit can burn, things like that. So I'm going to cut it away from the wall as well. Alright, so the last thing I need to look out for is height-wise. Now, I'm 6'2", so I can reach a little bit more, but I also know that this tree, if last year was any indication, is probably going to grow another 3 feet this year. And it's already at about 8 feet tall. I don't really want it to be 11 feet tall by the end of the year. So I am going to cut down kind of on height, kind of keep it right around this 6 foot high range. So I'm going to cut some of these upper branches away here. Some of the ones that are just kind of at that 7 foot high. I'll leave those ones, but the rest of them I will cut back, because I don't want this tree to be super tall. So let's go ahead and cut those height branches as well. And I wanted to kind of point this out to you. So anything that looks like this and is kind of coming off the plant like this, from the research that I've done and just from my experience last year, these will all be flowers. So I decided to cut this just because I needed to thin it out. You can see here that it's just super bunched up. There would be way too many flowers, way too many apples together on this one branch. So this branch, even down here at the bottom, it is just covered in what would have been flowers and would have been blossoms. At the very bottom here, you'll see these are the leaf buds, and so that's where the leaves would have come out. All right, so there you have it. Here's our freshly pruned, freshly trimmed Pink Lady apple tree. It is looking actually a lot better, definitely thinned out. You can see here in the middle there's a lot of space, also a lot of fruit buds all over the place, especially on those big thick inner trunks, and that's where you want those fruit buds, something that can support the weight of all of that fruit. So you definitely want it on those big limbs there in the middle. This is a really beautiful tree. I think it's gonna produce a lot of fruit again this year, so I'm very, very excited. One of the other things that I like to do this time of year, actually at the beginning of winter, is to spread some mulch, also clear out around the base of the tree. Haven't gotten to do that yet with this tree, but I'm going to here in a little bit. It's always nice to rejuvenate it for next year, especially for our stone fruit trees, because we know that they are going to be producing lots of fruit come spring, and that's kind of their time to really put out that energy, is in the spring. So you want to prep for that springtime, make sure that they're set off on the right foot. Episode took a few days to film, that's why I'm in different clothes here, but really excited for this beautiful tree to produce lots of fruit and to do a harvesting video here in the spring on our Pink Lady apple tree. So as always, live green, plant lots, and of course have fun. I know I'm going to. I can't wait for my Pink Lady apples in the spring. We'll see you next time.